How is it going, everybody? If I'm wearing the same clothes, it's not because I'm dirty, okay? I'm recording multiple videos in one day because I have a lot of time today. I'm not dirty, I promise, bro. But anywho, we have the worst war crimes each country has committed, and we're gonna see which country has committed the worst. Enough talking. This video is by a talking hat, and let's get straight into it. Thank you guys for being here, and I hope you enjoy. I was very brief about it. I want to say again, this video is by a talking hat. I'll leave it in the description, the original video and the channel. He makes very good videos that I highly recommend you guys check out. But other than that, let's get straight into it for real now.
China. Imagine you're a university student in Beijing and it's the spring of 1989. For weeks now, you and thousands of other students have been gathering peacefully in a public square, demanding democratic reforms. For the past years, students struggled with inflation, housing shortages, and unfair treatment from government corruption and elite privilege. The only true beacon of hope for students at the time was Hu Yaobang, a senior party leader in China who actually supported free speech and political reform. However, unfortunately, Hu's progressiveness was seen as leniency and political weakness, which led to him getting removed by the very people.
China's #2 man forced out over student protests, premiered to take reins of party. China's second most powerful leader was forced out as king of the nation's 44 million member Communist Party after weeks turmoil and challenges. Dang. Sorry, I paused so you guys can read it to yourself real quick.
He helped serve. With this deep betrayal, humiliation, and isolation, Hu would later on pass away from a heart attack while literally in the midst of a political party meeting. And so, that's why you're here. Ever since April 15th, the same day that Hu passed, you and millions of other people have been mourning his departure while demanding reform. You're not violent, you're not armed, you're just a bunch of young people who believe your country can be better. But on the night of June 3rd, everything changes. As you casually get ready for another round of peaceful protesting in the square, you see tanks rolling in. Let me repeat that. After a casual protest, you literally see hundreds of tanks and tens of thousands of soldiers appear out of nowhere. At first, you think that you're hallucinating, then you think they're probably just trying to intimidate you without actually hurting anybody. But that idea quickly dissipates as you witness those same tanks rev up their engines and run over protesters. Armored vehicles begin crushing people while soldiers unleash on the crowd. This atrocity is known as the Tiananmen Square Massacre.
Yeah, sorry I keep pausing. If you guys have not seen this image before, it's really popular. I've seen this before. You can see this man right here. This is a civilian, and this is all a bunch of the tanks coming in, and it's just horrifying. I'm pretty sure the man died. Correct me in the comments. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure he died.
You try to run, but there's chaos everywhere. Bodies drop on the ground left and right. Students struggle to free their friends, crushed underneath tank tracks, and, what's that? None of this ever happened? I'm just a crazy person. Everybody survived and lived happily ever after.
10,000 people died at a peaceful protest. Yeah, I can see why they're trying to cover it up. Jesus Christ, that's horrible.
United States.
Ooh.
It's 2003, and you were detained in Iraq during the US occupation.
Oh,
Honestly,
God.
you don't really even know what you've been accused of. Maybe you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Maybe someone gave the Americans your name, or maybe you're a straight-up war criminal. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter now. The American soldiers strip you upon arrival and throw you into a freezing cell. Sounds comfy, right? Well, that's just the beginning, because the humiliation starts immediately. The soldiers force you and other prisoners to do things that I can't mention on YouTube to each other, while they watch, laugh, and take pictures. If you refuse, then they'll do even worse things to you. For example, some nights they'll tie a rope around your, area and drag you across the concrete floor. The pain is excruciating, but your screams
This is actually disturbing.
only
And this is us, by the way. This is the US.
encourage them. Other nights, they bring dogs into your cell and lock you there inside with them, while they tear you to shreds. As for sleep, well, it becomes impossible, because every time you start to drift off, soldiers bang on your cell door, or blast music at deafening volumes, blurring your days together in exhausted delirium.
So you were getting beaten, sexually assaulted, and like you couldn't get any sleep. That is like every measure of torture that you can cover.
Then they'll force you into stress positions for hours, making you extend your arms, balance on one leg, or just
And it gets worse. Wow.
hold a generally uncomfortable pose until your muscles eventually give out. And as you could probably guess, when you collapse, they punish you and make you start again. Some individuals were forced to wear hoods and stand on boxes with wires attached to their fingers. Soldiers told them, if you step off the box, you'll be electrocuted. The wires actually weren't capable of doing that, but the prisoners had no idea of knowing that, and they'd be forced to stay on the box for nearly an entire night. This atrocity is the Abu Ghraib. It was disguised as intelligence gathering, and in 2004, photographs of the cruelty leaked to the public and
A secret army report reveals how leadership failures, intelligence demands, and private contractors turn a rebuilt prison into a torture machine. I'm pretty sure it says torture. Torture at Abu Ghraib. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but Jesus Christ. This is us, guys. This is the United States that committed this. And they literally covered every kind of like humiliation, sexual assault, beating you, torturing you, all kinds of stuff. Every aspect of torture.
shocked the world, leading several soldiers to being court-martialed. Nonetheless, many victims never received justice for what was done to them. Belgium.
And they never got caught. That sounds real familiar for a lot of things, especially recently. Being covered. People not being arrested. That sounds real familiar, real recently.
You and your partner run from the horde of cannibalistic soldiers chasing you. You're fortunate enough to find a building to lock yourselves into, so you quickly slam the door shut and board it up with your partner to temporarily fend off a violent militia of heavily armed youths as they bang on it to try to break it down. For some context on the situation, you two are both United Nations employees who
Sorry, Jujutsu Kaisen mentioned, I just recorded another video saying I just started watching the season 3 and I just started rewatching it and I'm gonna get to season 3 and I'm so excited. JJK mentioned, just had to bring that up.
were placed on patrol in the Ituri region of the Democratic Republic of Congo. You're unarmed, isolated, and surrounded by a cannibalistic militia. Your only chance of survival is your radio, which you desperately scream into. You and your partners tell the United Nations that they need to come quickly to pick you up because you're
The United Nations mission in Congo had already warned their headquarters. They called again saying, get us out of here, we're going to get killed.
both in grave danger. Lucky enough for you, the base is only a couple of miles away. It's so close by that you could probably just drive to it, but driving your car through an armed militia is just way too dangerous. So you need a helicopter to pick you up, but once again, it's close by, so at least they'll be swift with the pickup, right? You wait 6 whole days. Despite the base just being a 30-minute drive away,
They were receiving death threats. They said they were alone and unarmed in Mangbualu, a former gold mining town ruled by the cannibalistic Lindu tribal militias. A UN helicopter from the town of Bunia could have retrieved them in 35 minutes. Major Safwat Al-Oran, 37 from Jordan, and Captain Sidon Davis Benda, 29 from Malawi. Sorry guys, I swear I can read. Waited patiently for 6 days. They strained their hearing and searched the skies for a UN helicopter. It was only a 35-minute ride from its heavily guarded base. They locked themselves in their little compound.
when the helicopter finally arrives,
I'm sorry, that was embarrassing. I promise I can read.
it's way too late. Your bodies are found in a bush, both missing their brains, hearts, livers, and even they were all carved out of your bodies and eaten. And this is just one horror story from the Ituri conflict.
I'm sorry I keep pausing. I just want to read this for you guys real quick. UN ignored peacekeepers' rescue pleas. For 6 days, two terrified United Nations military observers called their superiors as many as 4 times a day, begging to be evacuated from the remote outposts in northeastern Congo. They were receiving death threats, they said. They were alone and unarmed They were unarmed? The former gold mining town Kamalosa Lindu tribal militia, UN helicopter. We already read that. But the United Nations, handcuffed by its own rules and bureaucracy, never sent a chopper. On May 18th, 10 days after the two peacekeepers made their first distress call, the UN flew armed peacekeepers to the Mangboalu. Chaos and cannibalism under Congo's bloody skies. In the harrowing special report from the Democratic Republic of Congo, filmmaker Sam Kiley accuses Britain of turning its back on a human tragedy that has already claimed more lives than any conflict since the Second World War. So, do they keep eating people or something?
Conflict. Militias engaged in ritualistic cannibalism. Villages were massacred. Children were kidnapped and forced to end their neighbors' lives and become soldiers. Now, you're probably wondering why this is listed under Belgium instead of the Congo. The reason's brief. Although devastating, the Ituri conflict was just one small war within a much larger catastrophe.
50,000 deaths. Up to 60,000. That is horrible.
It was part of the Second Congo War, which I don't know if you know this, but yeah. Africa had its own world war. It lasted 5 years and an estimated 5.4 million people passed away.
It said 3.6 to 6 million deaths. That's just like, that is so like sad.
From it, making it the most horrible conflict since World War II. And Belgium created the conditions for this bloodbath. When King Leopold II colonized the Congo in the 1880s, he turned the entire country into his personal rubber farm. Congolese people were forced to harvest rubber under threat of harm. If they didn't meet quotas, soldiers would cut off their hands, feet, or end their families. From King Leopold's atrocities alone, between 8 and 10 million lives in the Congo were robbed. After the country finally achieved independence, Belgium still went out of its way to sabotage the Congo by assassinating its leader and melting his body in a vat of acid, because he spoke against Belgium's corruption. A Belgian officer even took the Prime Minister's tooth as a trophy for the successful sabotage. Years of this non-stop disruption created the unstable Congo that we all know today. Japan. You're a Chinese civilian occupied in Manchuria, enjoying a late-night breeze beside your home. And then randomly, Japanese soldiers arrive at your village without warning, accuse you of theft, and then throw you into a truck with dozens of others, Chinese civilians. You're confused about your crime? You've been at your house for the entire day. You're sure it's just a minor mix-up that'll be cleared once you get to the police station. But you don't ever arrive to the police station. Instead, you're transported to a remote facility hours away. When you arrive at the compound, you're no longer given a name. You're rather assigned a number, and the soldiers begin calling you a log, as if you're not human at all. You're stripped, examined, and locked in a small cell. The building is cold, sterile, and clinical. You see doctors in white coats walk past your cell, discussing something. You can't understand what they're saying because it's in Japanese, but you can't help to feel uneasy as it's obvious.
Are they about to experiment on them? Oh god.
That they're talking about you. They bring you out of your cell and into a different room. One of the doctors sits you onto a chair and caresses your face while saying something in Japanese. Then, out of nowhere, he begins injecting something into your body while prison guards hold you tight. You feel violated at first, but when you see what's happening to the other prisoners, you quickly realize that you got it easy. Through the windows of other rooms, you see prisoners scream as they're open and harvested without anesthesia. More prisoners on the other side are frozen to the point of frostbite. Then doctors and guards smash their limbs to pieces with sticks and batons. You get a quick peek of the window outside, where you see a group of prisoners all tied to a pole while trying desperately to break free, as doctors and soldiers throw grenades at them. And as if that's not already terrible enough, there are things that you witness that are just simply too horrible to even mention on YouTube. You finally arrive back at your cell. Doctors with clipboards watch you, and when you sit down, you start feeling sick. That's when you realize that they've just injected you with a number of diseases. The bubonic plague, cholera, typhoid, and so on. You instantly develop
the bubonic plague. That is like, what do you even do after that?
a fever, then chills, then you begin vomiting. As days pass, you become unbelievably thirsty, but you're too tired to even stand. Your body is riddled from head to toe in thick, swollen lumps, and fluids begin leaking out of your body's orifices.
Oh my god.
They watch you deteriorate through the cell window, taking notes on clipboards without giving you any treatment. You're just observed, recorded, and studied like a lab rat until they bring another prisoner into your room and force them to do something horrible to your deteriorating body. At the end of it, you're no longer alive, and the new prisoner is now infected with what you had, and the cycle repeats. This was Unit 731, and between 1936 and 1945, an estimated thousands to hundreds of thousands of people passed away from their experiments and biological warfare. But at least the doctors that conducted these atrocities were arrested and sent to jail, right? Yeah, no.
That is just disturbing and disgusting, but yeah, they did so many I think I've heard of it. They done so many experiments on people, and I don't know if I'm correct. If I'm correct, editor me is gonna throw an image on the screen showing it, but I'm pretty sure Unit 731 is how we discovered, like, we're 80% water or whatever. And like, they found out the hard way, basically, and it's just, you don't even want to think about it.
After the war, many of the doctors who conducted these experiments were granted immunity by the US in exchange for their research.
We gave him immunity. Wow. The US scares me, guys.
Data, and none were ever prosecuted for their crimes. At the very least, these doctors must have found some very valuable information if the US allowed them all to walk free in exchange for it, right? Yeah. No, again. It turns out most of the data was really basic, redundant, or just purely unusual because the experiments were poorly done. Essentially, it was just a bunch of psychopaths doing psychotic things and pretending that they were doing it in the name of research. Germany. You probably already know about this event, and I don't really think YouTube will let me talk about it that much. So here are some fun facts about, paparazzi Germany. During World War II, Coca-Cola couldn't get syrup into Germany because of political complications. They were only able to use whatever available ingredients they had in the country. They tried their best to recreate Coke, but it came out orange and sweeter, and that's how Fanta was born. Also, the paparazzi banned jazz music. They called it degenerate because of the cultures that loved and mainly consumed it. But many high-ranking German leaders secretly loved jazz and would listen to it in private as a guilty pleasure, even as they publicly condemned it. Also, apparently, Germans back then were very obsessed with finding the mythical lost city of Atlantis. They sent expeditions around the world searching for it, believing it would
Really? I did not know that.
prove their stupid extremist theories. And lastly, the angry mustache guy was born on 4/20. So, yeah, pretty weird. The day starts like any other. You're going about your day arguing with your brother about how any JoJo character absolutely wipes the floor with Gojo. When suddenly, loud ear-piercing sirens blare across the city. You and your brother quickly get ready to evacuate the area, but then the sirens quickly stop. You look up and see only one American B-29 bomber in the sky. You thought it was an air raid of hundreds of planes, but nope. It's a false alarm, probably just a reconnaissance flight for a solo pilot. Which honestly, it's no big deal to you, so you and your brother carry on with the argument. Just a few seconds after that, the sky explodes, and you go blind. A light brighter than 1,000 suns erupts above the city, and in that instant, the temperature at ground zero reaches 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit. People directly beneath the blast are vaporized instantly, their bodies turn to ash and burned into shadows on walls and sidewalks. But you're lucky. You're far enough away that you survive the initial blast, but unfortunately, at the same time, you're close enough to witness the horrors that come next. The shockwave flattens everything. Every building around you collapses. Fires ignite across the city and also its people. As your sight slowly returns to you, you see men and women on fire, so desperate to get away from the heat that they jump into rivers and lakes to seek relief. But sadly, the heat is so intense that those same bodies of water begin to boil.
Thousands of bloated bodies drift on the water surface. Wow.
Boil to extreme temperatures, immediately cooking alive anybody who jumps into it. You stumble through the ruins, trying to find your brother, trying to find help, trying to find anyone. And then, that's when you see them. The Antwalkers. These were people who were so badly burned that their skin had melted off their bodies, hanging in strips from their arms and legs.
The city was a sea of flame. The people fleeing out of it were burned too badly to be recognized, even as men or women.
They had no eyes and red skin, giving them a strikingly similar resemblance to a walking skeleton. Hordes of them walk slowly in single file lines with their arms held out in front of them to keep their raw, exposed flesh from touching anything. They try to cry and scream, but the only noise they emit is something akin to a loud, wispy locust hum. They continue following each other in a single line, moving toward nothing, going nowhere, with most of them not even knowing where they are anymore. The only thing that snaps your mind away from this horrific scene is the sound of tap dancing. You quickly look to the left, only to see a skinless man missing his feet running toward you. He's walking on his exposed tibia bones because all the flesh has...
Early on, witnesses saw what Pellegrino calls a tap dance in Dante's Hell. A man ran past them, flapping his arms, making no noise, but the clicking on the road was his two tibia, chipping and fracturing with each step against the pavement. That is just horrifying, bro.
Has been burned away from his feet. Each step makes a horrible tapping sound against the pavement, fracturing his bones and grinding them against the ground. He doesn't scream. He doesn't interact with you. He simply runs past you. With the amount of focus he runs past you with, you quickly realize that he's searching for someone, perhaps a loved one. And as suddenly as he appeared, he disappears into the fiery smoke. Then, you wake up. You're 86 years old now, but the tragic atrocities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki that robbed you of your brother and over 200,000 civilians of their lives will never leave your mind. It can't. It may serve as an edgy internet joke for online trolls nowadays, but that was your life. It was your reality, and even decades later, it is a hell you can never escape. At the time, the nukes weren't considered a war crime. The US argued it was necessary to end the war, but by today's standards, the deliberate targeting of civilian populations with weapons of such indiscriminate destruction would definitely be classified as a war crime. War, corruption, and cruelty are all terrible things. They're committed by every country and by ordinary people who convince themselves that cruelty is justified or that the enemy deserves it, that their cause makes it acceptable. But the enemy isn't an animal, nor is the enemy an alien. The enemy is still human. A human that still feels things, thinks to themselves, and has memories. No human deserves any of this. Treat others how you wish to be treated, and don't just follow what others do. Be the example. Have a happy day.
Alright, editor me is gonna throw up an image or whatever of the guy who survived both the Nagasaki and the Hiroshima bombing. Maybe a little bit of like an information thing, but here it is right now. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was a marine engineer for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and had spent 3 months in Hiroshima helping design oil tankers during the final months of World War II. By August 6, 1945, his assignment had finally come to an end and he was preparing to return home to his wife and infant son in Nagasaki. That morning, while walking towards the train station after realizing he had forgotten his identification stamp, he noticed the American B-29 bomber Enola Gay flying overhead. At 8:15 a.m., the aircraft dropped the atomic bomb known as Little Boy. A blinding white flash filled the sky before the explosion hurled Yamaguchi into a nearby potato field, nearly 2 miles from the ground zero. The blast ruptured both of his eardrums, temporarily blinded him, and left him with severe burns across the left side of his face, neck, and arms. When he regained consciousness, Hiroshima had become an inferno. Buildings were flattened, fires raged across the city, and thousands of injured survivors wandered through the streets searching for loved ones. After spending the night in an air raid shelter, Yamaguchi made his way towards the destroyed city. He managed to board one of the few trains still operating back to Nagasaki the following day. Despite his painful injuries, Yamaguchi reported to work on August 9, 1945, still wrapped in bandages. As he described the destruction he had witnessed in Hiroshima, his supervisor reportedly struggled to believe that a single bomb could wipe out an entire city. At 11:02 a.m., another blinding light suddenly illuminated the office as a second atomic bomb, Fat Man, exploded over Nagasaki. The shock wave shattered windows and knocked Yamaguchi to the ground once again, exposing him to the second dose of radiation. Miraculously, he survived both bombings, and after desperately searching the city, he discovered that his wife and infant son had also survived after taking shelter during the attack. Following Japan's surrender, Yamaguchi spent months recovering from his burns and radiation exposure, although he continued to suffer health complications for the rest of his life. He eventually returned to work as an engineer before later becoming an author and an outspoken advocate for nuclear disarmament. For decades, he shared his first-hand experiences through interviews, speeches, documentaries, and books, hoping future generations would understand the devastating human cost of nuclear warfare. In 1957, he was officially recognized as a Hibukasha, or atomic bomb survivor, for the Nagasaki bombing. More than 50 years later, on March 24, 2009, the Japanese government formally recognized him as having survived both the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, making him the only person to receive official certification for surviving both attacks. Tsutomu Yamaguchi died from stomach cancer on January 4, 2010, at the age of 93. He left behind one of the most extraordinary survival stories in history, and a lasting message calling for a world free of nuclear weapons. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot to me, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Have a lovely day, everybody.